During this video, you will learn about the practical aspects that arise when using the classical model for structured expert judgment. So far in the MOOC, you have learned about the more theoretical aspects of the method, how to objectively evaluate experts' performance in quantifying uncertainty, and how to aggregate their assessments based on performance. An expert elicitation involves, however, many practical aspects. You might have already wondered how many experts should there be in an expert elicitation, or how many questions it is advisable to include. Or what about the actual setting of the elicitation? It is now time to answer these questions and find out a bit more about the practical aspects. We will not be able to cover everything during this video, so if you want to learn more, and especially to see the practical aspects fit to your own expert judgment study, consider enrolling in the PROFET. We will start by addressing another important question, that is, what defines an expert? There is no general consensus of what defines an expert. It is quite clear, though, that it refers to a person whose present or past field contains the subject of the study and who is regarded by the others as being knowledgeable about the subject. What is generally agreed upon is that any elicitation should make use of multiple experts. So, how many experts should there be? After a set of experts has been identified based on the two previous criteria, a choice should be made on which experts to use in the study. In general, the largest number of experts consistent with the level of available resources should be used. In any case, a minimum of 4 experts should be chosen for a given subject. As a rule of thumb, having at least 6 experts is recommended. Finally, the choice of experts should ensure diversity of the knowledge bases. It is essential now to clarify a very important aspect of the expert elicitation. That is, how the names of the experts are going to be used. The classical model seeks to satisfy the demands of openness and objectivity in science. If indeed the aim is to treat expert judgment as any scientific data, then it must be open to peer review. On the other hand, the method should satisfy the demands of freedom from conflict of interest or legal liability, which may legitimately be raised by the experts themselves. The procedure employs the following. Expert names and affiliations are published in the study. Also, all information, including expert names and assessments, is available for competent peer review, but is not available for unrestricted distribution. Individual assessments are available for unrestricted distribution. However, the assessments are not associated with the names, but identified as expert 1, 2, 3, etc. Finally, any further published use of expert's name requires the expert's approval. In the classical model, empirical control is built in the elicitation procedure by asking experts to assess calibration questions. The calibration or seed questions should sufficiently cover the subject of the study. For each question, at least 10 calibration questions are needed, preferably more. Also, it is preferable that the facilitator does not know the answers of the calibration questions during the elicitation. Now, there is no single best way to carry on an expert elicitation using the classical model. The original setting, proposed by Roger Cook, involves a face-to-face individual interaction between the facilitator and the expert. Since then, however, a workshop setting has been a more popular approach in many elicitations. Lately, a number of elicitations have been performed remotely, using one-to-one online interviews. In such cases, a teleconference with all experts or a webinar may be held prior to the individual elicitation interviews. Have in mind that all the settings require experts' assessments to be done individually. Regardless the format, the elicitation should include one vital element, that is an expert training session. The session focuses on training on expressing one's uncertainty. As you can recall, experts are asked to represent their subjective assessments in terms of 3 quantiles: the 5%, 50%, and 95% quantiles. Most experts are unfamiliar with quantifying their degree of belief in terms of quantiles. That is why a training session is highly recommended. The training session should include a probabilistic training presentation as well as a probabilistic training exercise, where experts need to answer questions in the same format as during the elicitation. The exercise questions should not require, though, extensive computing. Before the actual elicitation, several steps should be undertaken. There are certain documents which are important for the elicitation. These include a project description, which outlines the purpose of the project, the relevant timeframes, the required expert input. A consent form sometimes complements the project description, and it is sent to participants to formalize their agreement to take part in the elicitation and to disclose any conflict of interest. A briefing document guides participants through the elicitation, including the specific way to answer questions, the reasons behind asking the questions in a particular format, and the ways in which the answers are evaluated. A much larger document may be also compiled and made available prior to the elicitation. This document is an extended version of the briefing document, complemented with background information and available literature, especially useful to inform answers about the questions of interest. Finally, it is strongly recommended that any elicitation includes a dry run. Such step is crucial in decreasing any ambiguity and, most importantly, in the formulation of the calibration questions and questions of interest. It is also a good exercise for checking if all relevant information is captured and properly conveyed in a language which is familiar to the experts. Moreover, 1 or 2 field experts should be asked to provide comments on the available documents, the questions, the additional information given for each question, and to estimate a reasonable time required to complete the elicitation. This video was just a hint of all the concrete situations that need to be handled in practice. There is a lot of available information spread out throughout numerous sources, from which I select only these 3. As I mentioned earlier, you can get a very good grasp of the whole elicitation setting by performing your own study within the PROFET. Do you have more questions on the practical aspects? Please take them to the discussion forum. Thank you for your attention.